Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Daniel. I'm a sales support trainer here at Briggs Stratton Energy Solutions. And today what I have for everybody is we're going to be talking a little bit about battery energy storage and generator integration design. Few housekeeping items before we start. This is a NABCEP accredited course, a newly approved NABCEP accredited course. So if you're looking for your continuing education credits, we'll have an email that pops up at the end of this talk, and we'll go ahead and issue you the credits. You're going to get an email address. You email us just your full first and last name so we get the credits correct, and then we'll go ahead and issue those to you. If you have any questions during this talk, go ahead and put them into the Q&A chat. There's a button either at the top or the bottom of the your screen where you can enter in any questions. With me today is also Nathan Heston. Welcome, Nathan.
Thank you, Daniel. And I'll be here to answer questions as well. So if you pop them into the Q&A, like Daniel said, I can try to type some answers. And Daniel, so some good questions. I'll read them out loud to you.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. Great. We're going to really quickly run through some of the introduction to energy solutions, market drivers, market growth. Then we're going to get into the meat of the topic, which is really battery storage and generators, and how instead of them competing with each other, how can they complement each other? We're going to talk about how and why we do that, and also look a little bit about using portables, which I know a lot of people have, and then talk a little bit some layouts as well. One exciting thing is that we have a lot of other training opportunities. By being here today, you're showing a commitment to training, so I'm excited. And if you're looking for more additional training, check out the Briggs & Stratton Power Academy. There's a lot of in-person courses, on-demand courses, live virtual courses. There are a lot of great resources, so check that out. Additionally, check out some of our upcoming trainings. We're going to be doing this one, of course, today, but coming up on the 7th of November is maximizing solar energy using battery storage. We're going to be talking about the future of the net energy metering in California and really across the country. That'll be November 14th. And then the 21st of November, right before Thanksgiving, we're going to talk a little bit about how AC and DC coupling of PV systems, the advantages and disadvantages of both of those kind of concepts. So look forward to that. Another one coming up next week. If anybody's going to be up in Portland, Oregon, please join me for the Oregon Solar and Storage Conference. Great group of people up there. I'm going to be doing a talk on that exact one that I just mentioned, the maximizing solar energy using battery storage. That'll be on Thursday, November 9th. It's the nation's most beloved regional conference. So we'll hope to see you up in Portland. If you are going, put it in the Q&A or email me at the end so I make sure that we know you're going to be there. And I'd love to have coffee or just have a quick meet and greet with you. Let's go ahead and get started. Briggs & Stratton and Simplify Power are now one complete energy solutions provider. We're very uniquely positioned in this market for the generator and energy storage. Why? Because we do both. We can do both generators and energy storage. And by being one complete provider, what does that mean? Well, it's one tech support call, it's one warranty, it's one integrated solution that's being thought out by our engineers. So it's really exciting to know that we have this ability to be experts in both. Additionally, we make these generators in the United States and we make the batteries in the United States. So I'm really proud to say made in the America as well. Briggs & Stratton has been around for a long time, right? We have a long history and we're not going anywhere. And we have definitely a commitment to future growth. So you can see here on the screen, right? All of our locations around the world, we're truly a global company. And by being a global company, we're really able to have a lot of test centers, research and development, and really be those experts in both. And what we're going to do is dive into why we can take a generator and a battery and then combine them together to give your homeowner more resilience. A lot of these market drivers, you guys already know, but we'll quickly run over them. Really, home as a haven, that kind of came out of the pandemic. A lot of people working from home, school from home. And by having a home that has reliable, resilient power is becoming more important. We can provide that with batteries or generators, or perhaps even both. Existing infrastructure needs investment. That is not so much about how we can't, the power lines or the wooden poles in your neighborhood are about to fall over. It's more about what's the future of the grid going to look like when we start to electrify our transportation network and electrify a lot of our heating loads, and we wean ourselves off of natural gas for heating the home. And what that's going to mean is we're going to need more diversified, distributed assets like batteries, like generators that can be started on demand by the utility to really provide us that future kind of capabilities that we're going to be putting on the grid. Climate-related disasters, of course, hurricanes, earthquakes, even not necessarily climate-related, but also human-caused disasters such as sabotage, people shooting up substations. One of the interesting things, I was kind of coming into the office this morning and listening to the radio, that here in California, we have Pacific Gas and Electric, and they're talking about burying our power lines. We've had some very horrific fires that were caused by power lines that were swaying in the wind that arced and caused fires. Well, now Pacific Gas and Electric is trying to bury our power lines or underground our power lines. And they're talking about in the billions of dollars to make this happen. And one thing that they're going to do is they're going to pass that cost on to the consumer. We're talking double-digit energy price increases for our consumers. And one way that we can insulate our homeowners, our business owners from those rising energy costs is pairing generators and solar and storage together to essentially off-grid your home and insulate yourself. And that's really what that talk on net energy metering 3.0 is going to be about. And additionally, that talk on maximizing solar using battery storage. There's a lot of clean energy growth out there, a lot of subsidies, 30% tax credit from the feds can now be applied to just batteries. Historically, you've always had to take solar and batteries together. You can take it on just batteries as now.
Hey, Daniel, quick question
ahead,
on
Nathan.
that. I've had a customer ask me recently, is it possible for commercial enterprises to also take advantage of that tax credit?
You know, I'm not a tax expert, and one of the things is that we pay these tax professionals to do our taxes and look into them, ask them those questions. They're out there to get you money back on your refund, and look to them and make sure they can take a look at that. Additionally, there's now an opportunity for nonprofits to take a 30% direct cash payment. Again, I'm not a tax expert, so always look to talk to your tax professionals and ask them those tough questions on what you can get back.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. A lot of people have solar, but didn't get storage. There's a great opportunity out there to add batteries to solar. It's called the attachment rate, and we're seeing a really increase in that. There's an opportunity for us to come back and take one of our energy storage systems and AC couple it up to an existing solar site and get them the backup that they need. You can do that utility bill savings, like I just mentioned, with the net energy 3.0 kind of coming down in California. You can definitely pair that existing solar with the batteries. Off-grid is definitely something that's exciting. We got some new upcoming training, so stay tuned for that, where we're one of the few companies that actually warranties our product for off-grid. Additionally, we actually have a generator model that we warranty for off-grid, and we'll get into that here in just a second. The meat of this talk, though, is really about generator optimization, how we can take a generator and an energy storage system and complement each other and combine them together to make them work. Really, we can be that all-in-one. We have a company that's been around longer than our warranty. Our batteries can last a long time. We have a 10,000 cycle kind of model that we've demonstrated that if you discharge your batteries only down to 80% depth of discharge or 20% stated charge, you should expect around 10,000 cycles. 10,000 divided by 365 is about 27 years that you can expect. So as you're trying to do these time of use arbitrage or trying to make your off-grid home, don't worry about cycling those batteries every day, making those batteries work for you because they're built to last. They're proven, they're safe with our UL listings. They're compatible with a lot of other equipment. Our batteries are inverter agnostic. We're going to talk about our inverter. I love it, the 6K Simplify inverter. It's got a lot of capabilities, but keep in mind, our batteries can work with other people. Solarcs, everybody loves that Solarc 15K with the 200 amp pass-through, but additionally, Schneider and a lot of other brands. We can AC-DC couple it. And this is going to become important here in a minute is our C rate. The ability to charge and discharge our batteries quickly is going to play a role when we start to talk about generators. Why are generators so popular, right? Well, one, if you have a natural gas line come into the house, or if you have a propane tank, 1,000-gallon propane tank, you can run that generator essentially unlimited, right? You could run that generator for as long as you want. People like it because a lot of generators do whole home backup with the 200 amp transfer switches. It's really cheaper up front. But as we're going to look at this here and dig a little deeper, that if you start to account for the fuel cost, the maintenance cost, and all of the other costs that are associated with running a generator over time, that an energy storage system actually can be on parity with the cost. It's not the upfront price we're caring about, it's the lifetime cost that we need to really look at. A generator is going to work whether it's cloudy or nighttime. Some concerns though, really, and this isn't the fault of, I'd say, the generator manufacturers, but maybe the generator installers, that they were installing some generators in areas that they shouldn't have been, too close to vents at the house, and where we're starting to see some carbon monoxide poisoning. So we're going to show you some setbacks and some requirements for where you can place a generator, but there is that concern. Fuel costs, propane in a lot of places is $2 to $3 a gallon. And if you're having a generator that's using 2 gallons of an hour, right, that starts to add up. And I've seen here in California, our propane is even closer to $4 a gallon. Maintenance, definitely got to do the oil changes. You got to replace the starting battery every couple of years. You have to do the air cleaner. So there's those maintenance costs do add up. Usually around $350 a year is what I see generator dealers charging for preventative maintenance. They're noisy, those fumes we talked about, and you got to run gas lines. Gas lines can be expensive to run, especially if you have a big long run to do, and you got a lot of bends or kind of angles in the pipes. That's going to require you to kind of upsize the pipes. Why do people like battery storage? One, it's eco-friendly, right? It's that kind of green energy. It's potentially safer. And why I say potentially is that there has been a history of energy storage batteries going into unmitigated thermal runaway or these kind of lithium-ion battery fires. And what I'm excited to say is that we have proven through our UL listings that we have a safer chemistry that shows that we don't have that dangerous kind of potential of thermal runaway. Definitely able to use these batteries as an appliance almost, right? What does a generator do? A generator just sits there waiting for an outage. So, what is the payback on a generator? Well, the payback on the generator is peace of mind. A battery system can be one of those grid interactive appliances, if you will, where every day you can charge or discharge it when you want it to make sure you're saving money. Additionally, it is going to provide that backup. It is eligible for the 30% tax credit. One thing that I always hear is that with the generator, and you got a transfer switch, right? The transfer switch doesn't automatically transfer. So if you got a generator, you're sitting at home, the power goes out, well, everything in the house goes dark. You got to wait for the generator to start up. You got to wait for the transfer switch to transfer. By that time, all of your clocks have reset, your internet is reset. You got to go around and maybe reconnect any of those web kind of smart home devices. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you realize that an inverter can give you, not just our inverter, but a lot of inverters have a very quick transfer times. Ours does 8 milliseconds. That if that quick transfer, it's so quick that you usually don't even see the lights flicker, your clocks don't reset, and all those devices stay online. It can be a real kind of good selling point for people. They're quiet. Why is it not as attractive? Well, one, it's pricier up front. Again, we'll talk about lifetime costs, not just the price. A lot of times we're only going to back up certain loads, the critical loads, if you will. It's potentially a more complex warranty, and that can apply to some of our competitors. We actually have a very simple warranty on our battery, which I'll get into here in a second. And a lot of people don't like having to pull critical loads. We're not going to get as much power or energy out of that battery energy storage system. One thing that I really kind of was able to get a lot of generator dealers and people more familiar with generators and wrap their head around how energy storage works is think of the batteries as your fuel tank. Now, if you got a propane tank, right, 1,000-gallon propane tank, how do you refill that? Well, you have to have the propane truck come. If you got batteries and that's your fuel tank, you can literally have a solar module on the roof with no moving parts to refill your tank and give you that home, that microgrid independence. Think of the inverter as the engine, right? So you got an engine, in our case, right? Ours is a 6 kilowatt inverter that can surge to 12,000. You can parallel these up if you need more loads, but that's what's providing the power. Whereas the batteries are storing the energy to get your system going. One thing, as we're kind of talking about how this works, is this is usually what it looks like when we do generators on the left-hand side. Usually we have grid going through a meter can that's passing through our transfer switch directly into our whole home backed up loads. If the grid fails, the generator is going to start, that transfer switch is going to switch, and now we're going to use a generator to start powering the backed up loads in the home. On energy storage, it's a little different. What we usually do, and it's not always the case, we can definitely do whole home backup with the energy storage, and we're going to look at that here in a minute. We have grid, meter can, non-backed up loads, and inside the inverter is the transfer switch. It's a micro interconnection device, or a MIDI, I think it's what it's called. And that will allow us to transfer, disconnect ourselves from grid, and then start using energy stored in the batteries to power loads in our critical load subpanel as well. One thing that's really unique, and let's just, imagine, say we don't have batteries, but we want to add a generator, and we also have solar on the home. One concern, though, is if grid goes down, the generator starts, and you have solar landed in the main electrical panel. Well, the solar, because of the requirements, its anti-islanding requirements, the solar is going to disconnect if it sees utility goes away. But here you are using a generator to create a grid in your home. The solar may come back on, latch on to the sine wave generated by the generator, and then start to try backfeeding into the home. One unique kind of solution that we have here is the ability to use our Symphony 2 load shedding devices. These originally were created to drop out heavy loads when you're running on a generator, which allows you to size a smaller generator than you otherwise would have to have. What these load shed devices can be done is set priority, where it will drop out as the load on the generator starts to increase. But additionally, you can set these modules to essentially drop out as soon as it detects this generator that will start. And what we can do that is then drop off solar when a generator starts, avoiding the chances of the solar backfeeding into the generator. We're going to talk a little bit through our products really quickly, and then we'll jump back into how and why we connect generators to batteries. What has been a workhorse for us for a long time is our Phi and Amplify batteries on the far left. Those are 3.8 kilowatt hour batteries. They can either be in 24 or 48 volts for the Phi batteries, or 48 volts only for the Amplify. The Amplify has closed loop communications that can talk to inverters. It can talk to pieces of equipment, transmit its state of charge, its internal temperature, and any sort of other warnings that may be needed to transmit. We can take those indoor rated batteries and put them in outdoor rated cabinets like our Boss 12 or Boss 6 cabinets. Additionally, we can even take one of our larger cabinets and put an inverter up top. We do have an outdoor rated battery now, the 4.98 battery that you see on the far right, and that can be paired with our Simplify inverter. Additionally, those other batteries can be paired as well. Really excited by now we can be a whole system provider. We can provide an inverter, a battery, and more importantly almost is an app. And a lot of people don't necessarily focus on the app. I like to mention it because that is how people interact with these energy storage systems now. They look at their phone. So it's important to be able to have a robust, clean looking interface on a phone that allows homeowners to see what's happening. It allows installers to commission systems properly, quickly. It allows installers to remotely fleet manage their homeowner systems and monitor them for them. So it's really three legs of the stool that matter. A workhorse of a battery that can be cycled a lot, an inverter that can provide the power needed for the home with that quick transfer, and then an app that allows you to control it all and monitor it all. So again, this app is generated in-house by our IT team. That's really important. That allows us to offer robust tech support on this app. It allows us to pivot and add features as we see fit. Additionally, all of the servers that house the data on this app, your data, your homeowner's data is stored here in the United States as well. Again, we got these 3 batteries, the Phi battery on the far left, either 24 or 48 volts, Amplify there in the middle, 48 volts only, and the Simplified battery. All of these batteries, and I'm going to get to this here in a second, have what's known as a C/2 discharge rate. That means you can charge these batteries in 2 hours or discharge these batteries in 2 hours. And why that's important for this subject is that when we're using a generator to charge up the batteries, we can do it quickly. Run the generator at a very fuel efficient point, charge up the batteries, and then shut that generator off. You don't need solar. You don't even need grid. You could use a generator to charge up batteries and then shut that generator off. And by having a quick C rate or a C/2 discharge rate allows us to do that. Here are the Boss cabinets that I mentioned a little bit earlier. These do have some of those UL listings that people are requiring for fire safety testing. Again, we can take one of those Boss cabinets and take out half the batteries and put an inverter up top. In this example, you're seeing it with our 6K inverter. We can actually put a Solar 12K in this as well. And down below, you see 6 of our amplified batteries with our bus bars. This makes it real easy installation. We have all the bus bars, the battery cable, the terminal blocks that really make it a simple install, quick and easy. And this outdoor rated NEMA 3R cabinet is great, easy to put outside. I've even some put inside as well in a garage because it really makes it really easy and kind of convenient to put in. It is exciting though. We do have high voltage solutions, and I see this becoming more and more common now, especially with the new Solar 30K and the Solar 60K. These 208 or 480 volt 3-phase inverters need more than a 48 volt battery input. They need hundreds of volts DC on the battery side, and we have these high voltage stacks. They're coming in these server racks. Additionally, they can also be put into cabinets, containers as well, to provide that energy storage you need to provide the backup. This isn't necessarily to talk about it, but we do have very unique cold weather solutions on how we can operate our batteries in freezing conditions. You cannot charge a lithium-ion battery below freezing, and we have some unique ways to warm the battery up. Stay tuned for some of our other trainings on this topic. One way we can do that is use battery warming pads. Another way is a unique way of us adjusting the charge rate of the battery in such a way that we use the internal resistance of the battery to warm itself up, then allowing us to then go to a full charge rate. Very unique, and really excited to talk about that, and stay tuned for some of our upcoming trainings on that. Like I mentioned before, we have data that proves that we can do a lot of cycles. We do offer now a 15-year warranty on our Amplify and Simplified batteries. That means unlimited cycles at 100% depth of discharge with no megawatt hour throughput requirements. A lot of our competitors will say this first, that first, whatever comes first, your warranty's up. We're really excited to offer that warranty. If you do choose to only discharge the battery down to 80% depth of discharge, or you leave 20% of energy left in the battery, you're going to see a 10,000 cycles on that battery. Chemistry matters. Lithium ferrophosphate, that's a chemistry that we've always used. It's much safer than the cobalt-based chemistries. Additionally, we use cylindrical form factor in our batteries. Here's what I was referring to earlier, that C rate, the ability to charge our batteries quickly and discharge them quickly. Why does it matter? Again, we want to be able to run the generator the least amount of time as possible to charge up a battery and then shut it off. If we had lead acid batteries that maybe have a C/20 or a C/10, and if you're really pushing the lead acids, maybe a C/5 rate, you'd have to run the generator for 5 hours, 10 hours, or 20 hours to really charge the batteries. Even though you might have a huge generator with a lot of power, you can't push it into the batteries too quickly or you'll damage them. With our battery C/2 discharge rate and charge rate, you're able to do that. Why having a C/2 discharge rate matters is when you're trying to power loads quickly, or maybe you're participating in a demand response program where you want to be able to discharge quickly. We can scale batteries. You can scale batteries up in those 3.8 or 4.98 increments and kind of scale the system up to the size you need. Additionally, we can expand the system. So what I mean by that is that if you install a system and maybe the homeowner doesn't have the money for it up front, or maybe they are not expecting to have the demand for it yet, and they have the mother-in-law moves in, or they have some kids, or something happens, they get more electrical appliances. We can always come back and expand on that system. Usually about 2 to 3 years down the road is about as far as I want to see you do that. And that's unique to us, and we're really excited to do that. A lot of generators, and let's get into the meat of it right now, people. We're talking about generators today and batteries. A lot of generators out there on the market are what is known as standby generators. Standby generators are really just sitting there waiting for an outage and can start. So if you look carefully at the warranty of not only our standby generators, but other companies' standby generators, they're not warranted for off-grid use. We do carry a line of generators, our non-emergency, it's a 20 and a 26K generator, that are warranted for off-grid use. That means these generators can be put out there and run on off-grid. Additionally, this one can also be commanded to start by utilities participating in demand response. So say you're in a community, in a city, and the energy company, the utility company recognizes that it's a hot summer afternoon, a lot of air conditioners are coming on, and it's really taxing the grid. What the utility company can do is command your generator to come on, power your home, and remove your home from the load that's on the grid. And you get financially compensated for just being part of this program, and financially compensated for every time you participate in the program. So this is a really unique solution for us, and I'm really excited to share this with you. For any off-gridders out there, we can go ahead and leverage this system. So why would we want to combine energy storage in a generator? Well, if you think about it, it's been a kind of a historic idea, and it's been around a long time in off-grid systems. Where I'm at right now in Arcata, California, up in Humboldt County, northern part of California, we have a lot of off-grid homes. We have a lot of really rainy, cloudy winters. So when we're designing an off-grid solar system, and I'm trying to size it for you, if I size it for the amount of insolation or the amount of sunlight that I expect in winter, the solar array is going to be way oversized and frankly pretty expensive for summer, right? It's going to be producing all this extra energy in summer just to get you through the dead of winter. What I'd rather do is take a more balanced approach. I'm going to size your solar system to be a little bit smaller, maybe get you through spring and fall, and then knowing that we're going to have a generator integrated into your system so that when it's been cloudy for a week and rainy, and it's rainy right now, I can look out my window, that we can go ahead and start that generator up maybe once or twice a week when we need to, charge up the battery bank, and then top off the batteries and then revert back to batteries only. It's been off-grid for a long time, but the same concept, the same idea can be applied for when we're looking at on-grid homes that are in a grid-down situation. So it's been around a long time, and I'm really excited for Briggs & Stratton Energy Solutions that now we can provide both of those as well. Exciting things. A lot of times back in the day, we would have to use a Morningstar charge controller, an Outback inverter, a Victron battery monitor, some other buddy batteries, and some other solar. So now what we can do is kind of combine all those components into one complete energy solution providers, and that's us. So why did we do that, right? Is if you have a home, and maybe it's a grid-tied home without solar at all, right? By having a generator, you're giving them energy resilience. We can use the generator to charge up. Batteries are only going to last as long as they have juice in them. So if you have no way to recharge them, you have no solar, you have no grid, you can use a generator to recharge them up. And this is especially helpful during bad weather and cloudy weather, like I mentioned, because without solar, you can't recharge the batteries. So it's really exciting to do this. Again, you can always add a generator later. And really, if we're thinking about long-term disasters, I mean, I don't see how a propane truck is going to make it down this road that you see on this picture. So by having the ability to save fuel, reduce the runtime on the generator is really important. Nathan, any comments, any questions? Let's check in with Nathan here, everyone.
No, I'm just enjoying learning about generators here with you, Daniel. If we get some questions coming up, I'll pass them along.
All right, thank you. Standby generators, again, when they're running, a lot of times, and we have in our GC 1031 controller on our generators, you can actually go in and look at what's known as a histogram. This histogram in the controller will tell you at what load point the generator has been run at in history, in its life. And one thing that's unique, and I've seen this on some other generators, is that a lot of times when we size these 26K generators or 18K generators, and you notice that they're really running at like 20% load or 30% load. So what you're doing is you're not really running that generator at the most fuel efficient point. Really, we want to be up more by 70 or 80%. We don't want to be, pedal to the metal running at 100%, but let's get the generator working hard for us and run it hard for a short amount of time rather than running it at kind of coasting it for 10, 12 hours, however long the outage may be. So that's one thing we can do is use a battery that has a quick charge rate, C/2 in our case, to charge up those batteries quickly and shut that generator off. While that generator is running, it can support the loads in the house. It can also charge the batteries. And what it's going to do is it's going to extend the life of that generator by reducing runtime. It's going to save you on fuel. It's going to extend the amount of fuel that you have in reserve. And it's going to save you from that noise and the fumes that are pissing off your neighbors. So exciting to be able to combine those two together. So as we're looking here, this is kind of a diagram of what it looks like for our inverter, a 6 kilowatt inverter. What we have on the left is a grid port, a bi-directional grid port that can take power from the grid, or it can send power back out to the grid. We have a load out port that's powering that critical load subpanel. Additionally, we have that generator input. And that's the key to this talk here, is that we can use a 2-wire signal to start that generator. The inverter knows the state of charge of the batteries because they're communicating together, and it can then use the state of charge of the battery to start that generator when the batteries are starting to get low. Start up the generator, charge up the batteries, and then top them off, and then shut the generator off as well. We have 2 MPPT input charge controllers, so you can DC couple solar into this. We have that E-stop, and then we have the batteries on the far right. If you are going to be AC coupling in some solar to this example here, we're going to have to talk a little bit about interlocking breakers or perhaps a transfer switch to prevent, again, that generator and the solar from latching onto each other.
Hey, Daniel, we had a good question come in about third-party square wave generators being okay with our inverters. And so I think what you're asking, Anton, here is, will our inverter be able to take in cheaper portable style square wave signals? And I'll let Daniel answer that one.
Yeah, and that's a good question. What we want to do is when these generators start up, the inverter is going to kind of qualify that signal and take a look at it. And if it likes what it sees and it's within the parameters that the inverter has set into it, it's going to go ahead and start charging from that. So it's hard for me to know every different generator model out there, but let us know your model, and we can definitely talk to some of our sales application engineers, and we can look at the specifics of it. But I'll say this: if it's a old dirty generator sine wave, it might not. Anything to add to that, Nathan?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have had experience with customers that have used cheap portable generators, notably the Predator generator from Harbor Freight, and we're able to get that one working. One of the things to keep in mind is with a small portable generator, or a generator that doesn't have good control over frequency, it can throw it out of the frequency range. If you load it heavily, the frequency will dip. But we've also had, there have been a couple instances with cheaper generators that didn't get their signal accepted from the inverter. So it's not guaranteed, but it does take in some pretty cheap generator signals. Square wave will work, but we do need to make sure that frequency stays within the 57 to 63 hertz range that is acceptable to the inverter.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. Yeah, great point. The inverter is only going to take it to a certain amount of range here. There's different types of transfer switches that we offer here, and we're kind of going to be, excuse upon simplifying this a little bit, but we have what are known as our standard switches and our Symphony 2 switches. The standard switch essentially works like this. The generator is monitoring the utility voltage. If it sees utility voltage drop, it's going to start itself up and then send a signal to transfer to the automatic transfer switch to go ahead and transfer, right? So the generator is kind of the brains, if you will, a little bit on that. We have the Symphony 2 transfer switch, which is, stay tuned for a second. We're going to talk a little bit about this. What the Symphony 2 transfer switch does, in that example, the generator is monitoring utility, the transfer switch is monitoring utility and generator, and when the grid goes down, generator starts up, the transfer switch recognizes that utility has gone down, but it's waiting to see generator come up. And once generator and utility generator voltage has come up and the utility is down, it will go ahead and transfer. The additional way to do this is with our generators, you can have the generator monitoring voltage, right? And what you have to do is you have to disable that, and then use a 2-wire signal to start. Really what you're now doing is taking the control out of the generator and you're putting the control into the inverter. And it could, honestly, it could be other people's inverters that can start our generators. It doesn't have to be ours. A Solarc would perfectly be able to start one of our generators. What it is the generator will send, will be looking for grid, right? Because why do you still have to run power to the generator? Well, you still have to run power to the generator to run the battery tender for the starting battery, to run any cold weather accessories that you may still have on the generator. And a lot of times you will back that up from the critical load subpanel. So it's still going to see utility voltage. What you can do is get into our GC1031 controller, disable that auto mains failure sensing, right? So tell it to, even if it still sees voltage, but listen for that 2-wire signal to start, it will still start up. So these are kind of the different ways to do that, and how we send the signal to the generator. In our case, it's a normally open circuit. So when these 2-wire signals are sent by an inverter, it will close the 2-wire signal. The generator will sense that and automatically start up. If you do choose to use somebody else's generator, or already have somebody else's generator that uses normally closed, that is capable of being controlled by our inverter as well. And again, what's happening is the inverter is kind of taking over the commands to start and stop the generator based on the state of charge of the battery. Careful not to undersize the generator, right? Our generator is a 6 kilowatt generator. It has a 40 amp input into its gen input, right? So 40 times 240 is about 9,600 watts. That's why I think really our 13K generators are uniquely positioned for this. Don't oversize it. Now, that's not going to be a bad thing, but what I'm trying to say here is that if you got a 26K generator, and like I just told you, that you can only feed in 9,600 watts into the inverter, you're going to have this generator that's really going to be running at a kind of a low load point, and you're not going to be running as efficient as possible. There may be other ways, and it's possible to kind of utilize some of that excess power when needed. Number of cold starts, I got this kind of coming up, is that, well, what we're doing now is we're telling the generator start up and shut down, start up and shut down. Is that going to wear out the engine? And not in our case. Why? Because the engine inside of our generators is actually used in a lot of lawnmowers, a lot of other light towers, a lot of other applications where that engine's used to and designed to be started and stopped repeatedly without damaging it. You do have to feed 240 volt generator into our inverter. And I think that is also the case on a lot of Solarcs. Maybe that Solarc 5K can take in a 120 volt generator as well. And you got to wire it into the gen port. The generator must have 2-wire signals start, have that automatic starting and stopping capability. This isn't like a portable generator with that push button start, right? These are standby generators that have the ability to start up. Really, one thing to keep in mind, though, is that the generator, and a lot of times I like to leave our controller programmed to do the exercise cycle. So a lot of our generators are programmed to come on once a week and run for just a little bit of time to start itself up and test itself. And you could theoretically have the inverter doing that functionality, but a lot of times I leave that to the generator to do its thing, or its biannual 45-minute burn off as well. Again, it can use a normally closed or normally open contactor for the two-wire signal to start. Again, we're going to run the generator power into the gen port in here. And on the right is where you find the dry contact for the two-wire signal to start as well. And you're going to run that two-wire signal to start into our generators. And it's going to be ports 4 and 5 on our generators for the two-wire signal to start. A lot of our generators are what are known as air-cooled. We do have liquid-cooled generators, but in our applications, usually for this residential and small commercial, it's going to be air-cooled. These are gaseous generators, right? So what does that mean? It means propane, gaseous propane that's evaporating out of a tank, or natural gas that's coming from your city supply. So we have some new, really exciting kind of products coming out. One of them is that now we're offering what's known as NG Max. So we had a 12K generator that's now the 13. Our 17 is now the 18. Our 20 is now a 22. And one thing when you're listening to me rattle off these numbers, and when a lot of our competitors rattle off, oh, it's a 26K generator, these are all propane figures. And we realize is that a lot of generators that are run on natural gas, and a lot of these generators derate when they go down to run on natural gas. So as you can see, our 13 actually derates to 11.5. Our 18 though stays at 18. That's the NG Max. 22 is still a 22. So if you go look at one of our competitors' 26K generator, well, that derates down to 22.5. That means their 26K generator on natural gas produces just 500 watts more than what our 22K generator does on natural gas. So we're really excited to offer this. We have some unique technology that allowed us to do that by adjusting the engine timing and other kind of ways that we're able to do that with our exhaust and our intake manifolds. These new lines, the NG Max, now have an aluminum cover. They have the panels are a lot easier to take off and on when you have to do those oil changes. It's really a lot structurally strong. One thing is that you can see in the bottom left, and this is a feedback we got from a lot of people, is that the exhaust port, you can see it on the bottom left, that's our 13K generator. It had a little opening, a little hole cut in the enclosure to let the exhaust come out. Well, little critters or rats or little squirrels could get into the generator. We now have a screen that covers up the exhaust. And these are little things, that we listen to you guys and listen to the feedback in the industry, and we're able to really get you guys better products and continually improve. On the left, again, is the 13K generator. It's a vertical generator, so it has a very small footprint. On the right is what it would look like for the larger 26, 22 generators, and it's the same enclosure, so it looks kind of the same. Again, a lot of people have natural gas. So why is it that we call it a 22K generator, but it's really not 22K on natural gas? Ours is. One thing I do want to mention, and earlier I had said this, is that if you're off-grid, a standby generator isn't warranted for off-grid. We do have that one NG model that is available for off-grid, or NE, I'm sorry, non-emergency generator. If you do take one of our standby generators that's not the NE model, and you install it on a home that does have grid, right? It's not off-grid at that point. It's a grid-tied home, but and the grid goes down, that is still warranted. It's still a grid-connected generator. So we're really excited to have a very aggressive warranty on ours. Not only do we cover the components, but we're also paying you for the labor and the mileage that may occur. And that's really important when you're thinking about if you have to drive and send a crew of 2 guys down the road to service something. Really excited to be able to provide that warranty provisions. If you are going to do generators, please space them away from any openings in the house, at least 5 feet, and that includes like dryer vents or fresh air intakes, soffit vents, attic, crawl space vents. Really want to make sure we're safe, and 18 inches from any combustible product. So I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk a little bit about transfer switches. This is our standard transfer switch. And again, remember, this is the one that is controlled by the generator. It's told by the generator when to transfer. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to offer what's known as Symphony Choice, where you can take this standard transfer switch and install a separate board inside this transfer switch that will allow you to do some of that Symphony 2 load management. Those are the load modules that I mentioned earlier. So really excited to see that coming down the pike, the road. But again, this is the Symphony 2 here one, and this is basically where it's looking for grid, the generator is looking for grid, and this transfer switch is not only looking for grid, but also generator voltage, which will then, only if it sees the loss of utility and generator proof the voltage will it transfer. And you can see, a little hard to see maybe in that top right-hand corner, is that Symphony 2 load management board. What we're essentially doing is we're going to take this board out of the Symphony 2 transfer switch and allow you to install it into the standard transfer switch, which is the one I showed you previously. Why are we doing this? One, it's just to reduce the number of products that you guys have to keep on your shelf. By just having one transfer switch, we're really able to reduce the number of parts on the line. And really, it's giving you the choice. You can buy this thing, the load control module up front, or you can always install it later. So really excited to have some new transfer switch coming on. Somebody had asked a little earlier, can you run a portable to charge up these energy storage systems? And the answer is yes. Again, I think that was a great question about whether or not the sine wave or the voltage is going to be within specs. And we have to look at that a little bit more carefully as an individual generator on generator basis. But usually they have to be 240 volts. These do not have two-wire starting capability, so you're going to have to manually start or stop these, whether it's a push button or not. Keep in mind that a lot of times this may be a gasoline generator, but a lot of times they're known as dual fuel, where you can get the propane tank from your barbecue essentially and use that to power the generator. And I kind of like that example because a lot of times people buy a portable generator, they're all excited, they bring it home from the store, they start it up, and then they let it sit there for a year or two until the outage comes along, and by that time all that fuel has gone bad, the carburetor's all gummed up. By using a gaseous fuel like propane, if once you start the generator and stop the generator, all of that's just going to kind of evaporate and go away. So I like the idea of doing dual fuel. If you are going to have to keep gasoline around, usually you have a can of gas anyway for the lawnmower, that Briggs Stratton lawnmower. Put seafoam or stable in it to keep the gasoline good for you. But it is a little hazardous keeping that around. A lot of times I like to do a twist lock. So you roll the generator out and then you kind of have a cord and you would do a twist lock 30 amp cord in there. One thing is that I don't want to get too deep into, but its concern is that a lot of these portable generators have the frame of the generator and the alternator bonded together. And if we start to think about the National Electric Code, we only want one location in our house where the neutrals and the ground are bonded together. And we don't want to induce some concerns or some risks. So all of these portable generators are a little bit different. Open up the manual, read what it says, and understand whether or not you have to do something to unbond the frame of the generator to the alternator on that generator. I'm not going to get specifics because each generator can be a little unique to everyone else. Let's run through some diagrams really quick. Nathan, any questions? Anything to add for this?
Sorry, struggling to get unmuted there. Nothing else has come in yet to alert you to, Daniel.
All right, thank you. This is what it can look like, right? So what do we have on the right? We have a grid going into our meter main with non-backed up loads. We're feeding that into our bidirectional 40 amp grid port. And why it's a 40 amp port, right, is because by having it only be a 40 amp breaker, we're able to land that 40 amp breaker inside of this load center that has a 200 amp main with a 200 amp bus and stay within our 120% rule. Flowing up out of the inverter through our load port is going to go to our critical loads subpanel. On the left there, we have some DC coupled solar, right? We got some solar panels producing DC. Those aren't microinverters or optimizers, actually. What those are the rapid shutdown devices. Inside our inverter, we have AP Smart Rapid Shutdown Transmitter. And so all you got to do is go out and buy the AP Smart little rapid shutdown devices. And in those examples that I'm showing you, you can actually do 2 panels per device, but I'm kind of showing it 1-to-1 there. What do we got down below? We have some of our 4.98 simplified batteries. These are outdoor rated batteries that can be hung on the wall. We run them in parallel, and then we run them into a DC breaker. In this example, it's a Midnight Solar DC breaker that's going to act as a DC disconnect and overcurrent device between the inverter and the batteries. Additionally, what we have is one of our 13K generators that's being 2-wire signal to start, sent the signal from the inverter to go ahead and start and stop the generator based on the level of the batteries there. So really exciting to offer this kind of whole complete package, not only the batteries, not only the inverter, but also the generator and the Energy Track app as well. One thing is that we can add a Solak 15K. And one thing I think I just noticed is that I think we do need to add another disconnect right here. And I'll get that in the next diagram. Sorry about that, everyone. But what's exciting about the Solak 15K is that it's that 200 amp pass-through. We can take grid, put it through a meter can, put it through a disconnect, send it up to the Solarc, and pass all 200 amps up to a critical loads sub panel up top. And what that allows us to do is have whole home backup. With this being a much larger generator, we now have 100 amp gen input on the Solak 15K. Now let's go ahead and offer, right? 100 times 240 is 24 kilowatts. Let's go ahead and pair it up with our 26K generator and then use that all of that 100 amps to provide that power feeding right into that Solarc. The Solarc does have 2-wire signal to start. The Solarc knows the state of charge of our batteries. In this example, we have a Boss 12 cabinets with 12 of our Amplify 3.8 kilowatt hour batteries, 48 volts, that are all being told, they're telling their state of charge to that Solarc through closed loop communications, so that Solarc can start and stop the generator exactly when it needs to start and stop based on the state of charge of those batteries. The Solarc doesn't have the AP Smart Rapid Shutdown Transmitter built in. So in this example, I'm showing you the Tigo. Now, you could still use a Tigo on ours. You just have to buy the external rapid shutdown transmitter, which is that little green device you see just to the left of the Solarc. And then additionally, on each of the solar modules, you have the rapid shutdown devices. I think those are TS4Fs, but Tigo does make some optimizers as well, which is really exciting to work on. Off-grid. Nathan, did you have something to add?
No, sorry, Daniel.
Okay, yeah, that's all right. Off-grid. We are one of the few companies that not only offers a warranted inverter for off-grid use, but also additionally, when you use the non-emergency generators, they're approved, warranted for off-grid use. In this example, there is no grid. All of our loads are backed up. We have all of our loads backed up, landing in that sub panel right there. We have some of our batteries on the bottom with that same Midnight Solar combiner. This is what it might look like for a portable generator. So we still have our AP Smart devices with our solar panels on the left, feeding DC into our inverter there. We have some batteries on the bottom, grid, non-backed up loads. But in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to take a portable generator. We're going to then put some interlocking breakers in the critical load sub panel, which is near the top. And if the batteries are starting to go low, there's no solar to recharge the batteries, what we can do is start up the portable, flip the interlocking breakers, and allow the generator to then power the loads. This isn't going to charge the batteries, everybody, but what this will do is allow you to then power the home loads, let the batteries have a rest, if you will, and then power up the loads. And maybe at this time, when you got that generator running, go do the laundry, go do some of the larger loads as if you will, when you are running the portable. It can be where there is some examples, and let us know, contact us, where we could theoretically run the portable generator right into the gen input, which would allow the batteries to be charged, which would allow the loads to be covered by the generator. I want to be a little more careful about that because there are some considerations with sizing. A lot of these portable generators aren't 9,600 watts. A lot of them are much smaller. So this is what it would look like in this example if you were to do something like that. So one example too is that rather than using the Solar 15K, I also like this model, right? It's the same idea that we're going to do a whole home backup, but rather than having one Solar 15K, what we're doing is we're kind of not putting all our eggs in one basket, if you will. And what this means is that we can then have 3 of our inverters paralleled up so that you're still providing that whole home backup capabilities. But if for whatever reason one of the inverter breaks, you still got 2 left. And that's really unique redundancy backup situation. So we can parallel up our inverters and have that. And let me just back up a little bit, mention the bidirectional grid port. It's a regular grid up situation. It's sunny out, solar's blasting DC power down the roof. The batteries are full. All of the home loads are saturated. We can now start exporting to grid if we so choose to program it that way. Finishing up, everybody, if you're an installer out there, we have an IQ installer program, or IQ program. Please scan that QR code right now. What we'll do is that you can send in an application. We'd be happy to have you be part of this program. We'll put you on the maps. We'll give you some cashback opportunities. There's some photo contests that we do, which is always fun, and other kind of rolling kind of promotions that come along with this. So it's a way to drive business to you. It's a way for us to have great, knowledgeable installers like you on this training today be part of our IQ program. If you want that NABCEP, there it is, everybody. Thank you for being here for the past hour. We're going to go ahead and issue NABCEP credit, continuing education credits. Email training@simplifypower.com. Be sure to put your first name and your last name in the email, and we'll go ahead and send you the credits as well. Again, if you guys are coming up to Oregon, if it's a long shot, I know, but if anyone's coming up to Oregon, please send us an email, training@simplifypower.com. And we're going to go ahead and get you the credits. Nathan, any closing thoughts or any kind of comments or other questions? If you do have a question, put them in. And Nathan, I'll let you close us out a little bit here.
Well, Daniel, I think one of the nice things about showing those couple of examples of the whole home backup there, with the Simplify option, you get a lot more opportunity to bring solar in, right? You've got 6 independent MPPTs with those 3 inverters. You've got the capability of sustaining 22.5 kilowatts continuously in that example. And then, like you said, I mean, you highlighted how the Solarc has that ability to bring 100 amp of generator in per Solarc, right? That's with that 200 amp pass through from grid as well. That's also a nice option there. And I think those whole home backups are great examples, but also you have an off-grid training coming up in December in which you're going to talk about generators as well. So if you're particularly interested in off-grid as well, we're going to have a whole training focused around that in December. I do hope you get to meet up with some folks there in Oregon, Daniel.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for attending today.
Yeah, thank you for being here, everyone. And thank you, Nathan, for having us, being with me today.
All right. Take care.
Take care.